Mike Diaz here from LMS. Welcome back to the channel. Remember, you can count on LMS to give you the ground level scoop of logistics and warehousing out here in Southern California. Today we're going to talk about understanding drayage pricing. A couple of weeks ago we did a video on drayage and we talked about pricing, but this time we're going to give you the lines that are included in that pricing and what those lines mean. That way you as a customer understand what your either 3PL, your freight forwarder, or your ocean carrier is charging you for drayage. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like the content. You need to get in contact with us or me. My email will be in the description below. We're going off of a recent quote here, and we're going to explain the lines. So with every drayage invoice, you're going to see a few different line items. Not everything applies all the time, but today we'll go over that. Usually you're going to see a line haul rate or a base rate. That rate is obviously going to change depending on the distance of the warehouse. So San Bernardino, we're looking at 2 days, $775 from this particular carrier. We've seen $850, $950. We've seen $1,050 before. Your next charge that is connected to the base rate or the line haul is always going to be an FSC, a fuel surcharge. And that is depending on what the price of fuel is at the time. So that is going to be a fluctuating rate. The base rate or the line haul rate is going to change depending on the market. That'll be seasonal. You're probably going to pay a little bit more during Christmas and peak season, or right before Christmas and Thanksgiving. And the fuel surcharge, as the price of oil changes and things happen around the world with inflation and with the value of the dollar, that's going to change, and that will go up and down just like your base rate will. Your next lines are considered more to be accessorial charges, so they can or cannot be there, but for sure chassis is one of those that is going to be there. And your chassis rates, it varies. Some carriers are charging $40 a day, some 60, some 65, but for the most part carriers should be paying themselves about $35 to $55. It depends on the terminal. If your carrier is going into WCCP, that's one specific terminal, they're charging $90 a day for their chassis. But any other guys should be within the $35 to $55. What your carrier charges you, that's on them, and that's whatever you guys negotiate. You're also going to see things, so chassis fee is always going to be there for sure. Detention time, and that's wait time. Some carriers will bill you detention after an hour, some after 2. It all depends on what you folks negotiate. Some folks don't bill detention because of the back and forth. Sometimes one container will have you waiting for 3 hours, another container will have you waiting for 9, 10 hours, while some other containers will have the trucker in and out in 35 minutes. So if you have a good carrier and they understand that, they probably won't bill you detention time for anything other than something that's in the excess of 6, 7, 8 hours. The way we curtail that here at LMS is if we have a container to pull at a specific terminal and that terminal is congested and full, we'll just move it on to the next terminal to pull the next container. We'll wait to pull that container the next day. So we kind of ebb and flow around that. We don't have to worry about charging our containers or our customers detention time, and we don't have to worry about our drivers being detained as well. So it's detention time, and that usually goes from anywhere from $60 an hour to $90 an hour. It all depends on the carrier. 90% of carriers nowadays are going to have port congestion fees, and that's just another, anywhere from $90 to $150. Here they do not have any congestion fees, but they do have a peak season fee for $100. So that means when it's peak season and all the ports and terminals are congested, they're charging you an extra $100 per container. But for the most part, your other guys are charging all year round for port congestion fees, probably about $1.25. That's just another revenue source for these truck drivers, for these companies. A chassis split. So chassis split is the one that's least understood. And to confirm, there's different occurrences that'll cause a chassis split. But think about it as that container, it's by itself. When you're on the ship, a chassis is put on the floor, the container is put on the chassis, you're done. You're just paying chassis per day. But there are times where, for example, this container we have to pull out of the port, but to terminate it, we have to go terminate it elsewhere because of whatever reason. Someone could have purchased this container because this container is approaching the end of its life. So we would have got a notification to terminate or to return this container to a yard or another company or another terminal. We're not terminating it or returning it to where we picked it up from. That would warrant a chassis split. So what's going to happen is we terminate that container where we were told to. They pull the container off the chassis. Now we got to return the chassis to where we picked it up from. So that would be for productivity purposes and for the labor entailed in doing what we had to do. That would entail a chassis split. Another charge, another occurrence that would cause a chassis split would be, let's say your container had to go off-site to a customs exam. There's already predetermined locations where containers go off-site to a customs exam. We have to take a chassis from the port, bring it to the exam location, pull the chassis off, pull the container off the chassis, to then return the chassis back to the ports, and then we have to go pick up another chassis the day that the container is released from the exam area. So pretty much every time that container has to come off the chassis, you're going to see a chassis split, and that's it could not happen. Pre-pulls, you'll see companies bill. For example, this company wants to bill $250 for a pre-pull. The normal rate that I've seen in the past for pre-pulls is $100. It never passes $150. In this case, they're doing almost double. Pre-pulls are in case I have to make an appointment to deliver tomorrow. So tonight I'm gonna go pull the container because I have to have it all ready. And then I'm gonna request an appointment for where I'm delivering to. So I have to go at night, I have to hold on to the container, probably store it for a night, which is $50. In some places, storage here is $45. They'll have to store it, or if not, put it in their own yard, and then go in the morning or whenever they made that appointment, go deliver to. So again, pre-pull is in case I have to make an appointment. I pre-pull that container to have it in my yard on the ground, so I can then call and make an appointment, and I can make that appointment time. A lot of folks try to curtail that by making an appointment the day they need to pull the container. And what that's going to do to you is they're most likely going to miss that appointment time. 90% of the time they're going to miss it. And if that warehouse is anything like us, they're probably going to charge you about $100 if your driver misses that appointment. So any appointments missed, that is, it hits the productivity in a negative way of a warehouse. They're probably going to charge you for that. So dry runs. Dry runs would be, for example, a trucker is dispatched, an actual truck is dispatched to the terminal to pick up a container, but the terminal shuts down. Terminals can shut down at any given time, and they do it all the time. They'll shut down for a safety issue, for a safety meeting. They'll shut down for second shift because of whatever the case is. It could be a COVID outbreak, and at the last minute they're shutting down. Any little thing that they do at the terminal that shuts that terminal down, and you got a driver that was headed out to pick up a container, now he has to turn around empty, they're gonna charge you a dry run. That's what that means. Overweight fees. So overweight, when a container is overweight, what is overweight? It varies between, I would say 1,500 and 2,000 pounds, depending on your carrier. So some carriers on a 20-foot unit, 36,000 pounds on some carriers, that is, after 36,000 pounds, it's overweight. For us, after 37.5, it's overweight. For some, after 38,000 pounds, it's overweight. And what has to happen is you have to apply a tri-axle chassis. So that chassis have to have 6 wheels. Three axles, 6 wheels. You're gonna pay more through any tolls, and you're also having to have the availability of triaxle chassis. Those go for about used to go for about 125, 150. Your overweight fee here is 200 bucks. Now, if your driver decides, and this can happen, if your trucker decides to grab a container and not get a triaxle chassis on it, which has happened here before with other carriers, they're liable for $2 per pound fee fine. So whatever number is overweight, if it's 1,000 pounds that's overweight, it's $2 per pound, $2,000 fine. Storage. Another accessorial could be storage, where your container has to come out of the ports. Let's say you sent us a delivery order, which is containers that are coming out of the ports, and you decided to put 20 containers on that delivery order. You're probably going to be paying a hefty amount in demurrage fees, if not storage fees. Storage is 50 bucks a day, in this case 45, and demurrage is about anywhere from 150 to 300 bucks a day. So if demurrage is a lot greater, we'll opt for you to pay for the storage, and we'll try to get as many containers out of there as possible, but putting the rest of the containers into storage. Once all your containers are out of the ports, then we'll proceed to the delivery location, and you'll be on the hook for storage fees. Some guys will have bobtails. That is a specific charge for when you drop and hook your container. So most warehouses on floor-loaded containers are going to want you to drop the container, especially with containers that have multiple SKUs. Now, if you have one SKU per container and you tell me you want to live unload and prefer to pay wait time, now you're on the hook for what time that truck is going to get here. So they'll pre-pull your container, which is in this case 250 bucks to get here on time tomorrow at 8, or they don't do that. But since it's a live load, for me, I'm gonna have labor waiting here on site at 8 a.m. for your container. So it's probably gonna be about 4 guys in a forklift, and 4 guys in a forklift, that is 47 bucks an hour times 4 guys, $15 an hour for that forklift. Sounds like a little bit more than 250 bucks for me. So you're gonna choose whichever's the lesser of the evils, right? So if you drop a container, you can drop the container, but some carriers are gonna charge you a double dray. So if you're paying $1,000 for the dray, you drop a container, it's gonna cost you $2,000 because they gotta come back and get it again. Now, if you have that same carrier going to the same location all the time, you can negotiate that to where they can drop a full and there'll always be an empty for that carrier to take back to the ports and terminate for you. If you have questions on that and need the full shebang on as far as negotiating the actions and matching things together, send us an email and we can explain in more depth. So it looks like I am not missing anything as far as accessorials. Now, there could be some more accessorials out there. You have different carriers charging for different things. The biggest thing in logistics is what somebody calls, one thing. You got other guys that call something else. The pre-pulls, they can be called something else. Just like the chassis fees, they could call them equipment fees. Dry runs could be, bobtails in other places. The last line that we had here that I didn't say was a reefer fee. So if you're bringing in a reefer or an ISO container that requires some sort of temperature control, you're looking at a different fee here because they have to send in probably a different truck that has different connections, especially for the ISO containers, for the ISO tanks. And then one final one that I forgot was a redelivery of empty due to no appointment. So there are times that they're changing things around in Long Beach. Your empties need an appointment to be terminated at Long Beach. There's times where a shutdown, with a shutdown for any reason, that'll get you a dry run fee. You'll now miss your appointment, and they have to do a redelivery. So they gotta make another appointment, they gotta redeliver that container. Over here, they're charging $250 for a redelivery attempt due to no appointments on the yard in Long Beach. So there's times that what Long Beach does is gonna cost you more money. And any further questions, anything else that you wanna know about the subject, please get in contact with us. Remember, if you liked the video, hit that like button, help us out with the algorithm. Please consider subscribing and hit that bell notification so we can see you on the next one. And until the next one, we'll see you. Mike out.